May I come in, sir? Assalamu alaikum.
Hi. Then you can introduce yourself to all of us.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Zubaria Zahoor and I hail from Kallar Saida, that is a tehsil of Rawalpindi district. So I was born in 1996 and since that time I have been living in my own tehsil. I got my primary education from there as well, but then after my intermediate for my university education, I had to move to Texla. And from there I did my BSc in computer engineering. And after my graduation, I joined the corporate sector of Pakistan. And since that time, I have been working in the field of IT. So after my graduation, my first job was as a team lead in an IT company. And then I had to leave that job in 2020 because of my first attempt of civil services. And then right after giving my attempt, I joined another multinational IT company. And there I'm serving as a manager right now. And that's it for my educational background. And if you talk about my familial background, we are 7 siblings with me being on number 5. And all my elder siblings are working in their respective fields, primarily in the field of education. My father is a retired government servant from Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. And as far as my interest for civil services is concerned, I have been at different leadership roles at my university and other educational institutions as well. So that gave me a motivation to be in a leadership role and make a difference in the society and do something particularly for vulnerable communities of my country, especially minorities, children, women, and the senior citizens as well. And that's all for now.
So you are currently working as a team lead.
So currently I'm working as a manager.
Okay, you are working as a manager.
Yes, sir.
In non-tech.
Manager non-tech.
What is the function of a manager?
So manager is actually second one in the hierarchy. And the function of a manager is to manage all the operations that are going on in an organization. Manage all the workings, all the procedures that are going on, the scheduling, the QA as well, the duties, assigning the duties, and then doing the quality checking as well.
Tell me, how do you make an assessment about the performance of government? Because somebody is managing. What do you think? Is it managing, he is managing in a better way, or there are some challenges which the government is facing in the management?
Yes, sir. I believe that there are some challenges that the government is facing, and these challenges are inevitable. Every government faces these kind of challenges, but and there are some lacunas in our system as well.
What type of challenges this government is facing? Let's talk about the political scene.
So if we talk about the political challenges that this government is facing, there is a lack of consensus. And because of that lack of consensus, the primary function of the political system of a country, or the primary function of the legislative branch of a country, which is legislation, that cannot be done because of the lack of consensus. And that we just saw when the governing party, it presented the mini budget as well. So we would see that how there is a lack of consensus between all the political parties in our political system.
I read somewhere that the present government has a sort of a keep on going for confrontation with the opposition. Do you think this is a good policy, this confrontation policy?
No, sir. As per my knowledge of political science, I don't think this is a good policy, because for making a better political system, all the political parties in a country, they need to work in consensus for the betterment of the people, for the betterment of the people who are being ruled. So this is not a good policy to be at confrontation, to be at loggerheads all the time and not going towards the betterment.
Do you see that this government can change their policy and to bring sort of a more harmony between the opposition and the government? It is the function of the treasury benches, I hope.
Yes, sir.
So do you think they can do it?
Sir, I think that everything is achievable if you have the motivation or if you have the dedication to do that. But as far as the track record of this government is concerned, as for now, we haven't seen any landmark event where the government has been in harmony with the opposition. But I think there are some sane voices from both the sides that can work together to create a harmony between the two parties.
Tell us about national security policy which the government has formulated. What are the salient features?
So the national security policy of the government was formulated some days ago, and the salient features are actually to improve the security, or to actually look for the economic security of the country. So its main focus was to move from the military security to the economic security, as our stakeholders also talk about it, that how we can play a better role in the region and in the global dynamics by working on our economic policies, the mass media, talking about there was a clause about literature as well. So that's like an umbrella term for all the changes that they are trying to adopt, and it's a long-term policy. It's going to be there for 5 years, and there can be modifications that could be made by the upcoming government.
There are certain parleys going on between the government of Pakistan and the IMF. What is the update status?
So I'm not sure about the update status, but the previous one, they were talking about making some structural adjustments in our economic system, and they were asking for more autonomy for State Bank as well. And for that,
what is your understanding of this more autonomy of State Bank? What State Bank is there? It is a product of legislation. It is functioning. What do you think? What do you mean by more autonomy?
Sir, as far as the economic policies of the country are concerned, the government is having a major share in defining them, in making them, and it's playing major role in this regard. But IMF is actually asking for giving more autonomy or giving more authority to state banks so that it can be a decisive factor, or it can play a major role in the formulation of policies rather than the government. State bank should have more autonomy over the government comparatively.
But you are a student of public policy.
Yes, sir.
And who is at what level policies are made? State Bank is one of the organization of the government.
Yes, sir.
So, but the policy making is with the parliament, you know.
Yes, sir. Policy making is primarily the task of
budget. The finance bill is passed by the
Parliament. Yes, sir.
So I think don't you think State Bank has limited role?
Yes, sir. I believe that it
then
should.
What autonomy they are looking for?
Sir, actually, there is a conspiracy. There have been talks in Pakistan about how IMF is trying to influence the economy of Pakistan.
Have you seen the ordinance or the law of the State Bank of Pakistan?
No, sir, I'm not aware of
Have you seen what are the proposed changes they are looking for?
No, sir.
So how you can speak?
So that's what I know as per my reading.
What is the difference between governance and good governance?
So governance is actually a whole term that is used for all the parameters that is being between the rulers and the ruled one. For the rulers or for the politicians, for the ruling government, they are trying to control the affairs of the state for the public. That is known as governance. And good governance is a kind of governance. We have good governance and we have bad governance.
What are the characteristics of good governance?
So good governance has different characteristics, but I'm going to talk about the primary ones, the important ones. In good governance, the public should be given with all the services that have been promised to them in the constitution of a state. So number 1, there should be rule of law. Number 2, there should be equality of citizens. Number 3, there should be accountability. Number 4, there should be complete political participation of all the population. And number 5, there should be independent judiciary. And there should be complete electoral participation of people in the socio-political dynamic of the country.
In which year Pakistan resolution was passed?
It was passed in 1940.
When Congress was established in the subcontinent?
So Congress was established in 1885 by A.O. Hume.
And when All India Muslim League was established?
All India Muslim League was established in 1906.
When Pakistan got independence?
Pakistan got its independence on 14th of August 1947.
Who are the signatory of the 73 Constitution? Can you name 1, 2, 3 persons?
The writers?
The signatory of the 73 Constitution of Pakistan.
So, may I make a guess?
Okay. You tell me what are the salient features of Pakistan Constitution 1973.
So talking about the salient features of 1973 Constitution, number 1, it promises a bicameral legislature consisting of Senate and National Assembly. Number 2, it talks about the principle of federalism, where there will be a federation and there will be some autonomous units known as provinces in our constitution. Number 3, it talks about Islamic provisions as well. Number 4, it talks about making local government in Pakistan. Number 5, it grants us with the principles of policy and fundamental rights. Number 6, there is objective resolution as well. And number 7, it talks about the appointment of judges, appointment of armed officers, appointment of the formation of the legislature as well, and it talks about appointment of executives. That's what I can recall as for now.
How you compare Pakistan relations with the USA and then USA relation with India? What are your views?
Sir, as far as history is concerned, and if we look at India's relation with US, so India has been more inclined towards Russia in the past, but right now we can see for the containment of China primarily in the Indo-Pacific, India is inclining more towards US is inclining more towards India, and we can see the examples of a Quad and the exercises that have been going on in Malabar. But if you talk about Pakistan, Pakistan has been with US for a very long time, but still, despite that long journey since the time of Sento, from the time of Liaquat Ali Khan, and then talking about Afghan war, then talking about war on terror and the current scenario, I think still throughout this journey there is some kind of mistrust between US and Pakistan that we have not been able to overcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So PAS is your first preference.
Yes, sir.
What is the hierarchy of PAS in a district?
Sir, in a district, we have at the top we have Deputy Commissioner, we have Assistant Commissioner, and then we have with Assistant Commissioner there are working. I'm not sure about the official positions, but there are Tehsildars and there are Gardawars and Patwaris who are working for land revenues basically.
Compare the PAS, which was formerly known as DMG, in the 90s and with the PAS, which is in 21st century. What are the salient differences?
Okay. Sir, as far as DMG group is concerned, district management group, I believe that had more powers than the current PAS, that is Pakistan Administrative Services. And in most of the parts, we would see they have magistracy powers as well that our public administrative servants today don't have, especially in the areas of Punjab and KP, except for the tribal areas. That's one difference I know. And again, it's about having more authority. And I think that authority has now been limited.
So, magistracy, executive magistracy were withdrawn. By whom?
Sir, sorry, I don't know about
Justice Naseem Hassan Shah.
Thank you.
Do you think that magistrate power should rest with ACs? Or they shouldn't rest with the ACs?
Sir, as we learned that, as we have read that absolute power should not be given to a particular position holder. So I think this decision was right. If we look at the previous records of DMG services, I think this is right, and magistracy power, it should not rest with the ACs until and unless it is granted in some situations where it is needed. For example, where there is a situation of rule of law is in jeopardy. In that case, magistracy power is granted to them. But generally, I think it's not a good practice. Yes, sir.
What is the current status of Gilgit-Baltistan vis-a-vis Pakistan Constitution?
Sir, Gilgit-Baltistan was actually as per the political map of Pakistan, Gilgit-Baltistan was being considered as a province. But the problems with that is that Gilgit-Baltistan is considered part of Kashmir. And
constitutionally, is it Pakistan's province?
No, sir. Constitutionally, it is not.
Why not?
So there are two primary reasons for that. Number one, if we consider it a province, then the de facto arrangement of India, like India is having control over Indian occupied Kashmir, Pakistan is having control over the Azad Kashmir, and Gilgit-Baltistan is on our side as well. So they would think that we have actually accepted the de facto arrangement of Kashmir. Number one is this issue. And number two is that if there is a referendum as per UN resolution, if a referendum takes place for the autonomy of Kashmiris, then we will have to include the GB's population with Azad Kashmir as well.
Okay. So there is what's bad in it?
So I think that is a good strategy adopted by Pakistan.
China is pressing hard due to CPEC to declare GB as a province. If you are Prime Minister of Pakistan, what would be your answer or strategy?
Sir, if I would be Prime Minister of Pakistan, I would like to deal with it diplomatically. China is very well aware of our rivalry with India over the issue of Kashmir, and China has been with us in UNSC as well. So I think we should take our friend in confidence, and we should tell them that these are the factors that we are considering, and you should also...
So you are not in favor of
making
granting
it a
GP a province. how much territorial percentage is with India and how much territorial percentage of Jammu and Kashmir is with Pakistan?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware of that.
So what about AJK? Why we have a president in AJK and we don't have a president in Gilgit-Baltistan? What is the constitutional status difference between GB and AJK?
Sir, AJK is an autonomous unit that has been granted in the Constitution of Pakistan. And as far AJK is concerned, AJK is defined as an autonomous territory that Pakistan is going to rule until and unless there is a decision about the fate of Kashmiris.
Why can't we do the same with the GB?
Sir, I'm not sure about that.
What do you have to say about the recent constitutional amendment and the law passed regarding electronic voting machine? How do you see it?
Sir, being a student of being a computer engineer and being in the field of IT, I think EVM is not a good practice in Pakistan. Now, there are certain factors for that. Number one, it is prone to manipulation. It is prone to maneuverance, and a lot of hacking and a lot of machinations can be used to actually change the electoral results. And especially in Pakistan, we are lacking capacity right now. So I think to build up that capacity, even Election Commission, it sent 37 points reservations to the Parliament for
this purpose.
Yes, for this
make
purpose,
it
and exactly
more secure,
for all the problems that have
safe.
been with EVM.
So why the present regime is bent upon implementing it? What do you see?
Sir, the present political party, that is PTI, they might be having their own objectives, and we can see that opposition is not at par with them for this particular issue. If you talk about
But the bill was passed.
Yes, sir, because of the majority of the government and their coalition parties, that was passed. But still, there are a lot of loopholes, and we can see certain developed countries as well. They did not, they adopted it and then they took it back.
It was passed in a joint session.
Yes, sir.
Why there was a need to summon the joint session?
So that is still unknown to me as well. There was an urgency to adopt this bill and to get it passed from the joint session, but I don't think that it is going to help in Pakistan.
Okay, last question. Since foreign service is also your option, what is the difference between an embassy and consulate?
Okay, so embassy is actually a representative of sovereign. It's actually a representative office of the sovereign of a state. For example, if we have Pakistan embassy in US, that is representative of the Pakistani state. But if we talk about consulate, that is actually, an embassy is only one for one country in a particular region. But if we talk about consulate, then there can be more than one consulate, and they are actually there to provide services, to provide specially consular services to all the citizens of that particular country.
They don't represent the sovereign state?
So they do represent the sovereign state, but if we talk about the principles like diplomatic immunity, that is granted in more proportion to the ambassadors as compared to the councillors of a state.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Please.
I would like to seek your comment that you said that this EVM can be manipulated.
Yes, sir.
Why so we are ready to trust this technology when it comes to financial transaction? We do millions of billions of rupees transactions through our these mobile applications,
Yes, sir.
but we are not ready to trust these EVM machines. Why so? Why there is a contradiction over it?
So first of all, as I already mentioned, there is a capacity lack of capacity, especially within the state of Pakistan. We might not be able to adopt it, especially at this particular stage, because we are already in shambles. So if we talk about trust on technology, then your point is valid that we keep saying that all the banking should be online, all the banking should be through websites, applications. But as far as EVM is concerned, it actually talks about the electoral process. And I think as far as electoral process is concerned, our population is not that much aware, and it does not have that much awareness about IT tools specifically. So even though to maneuver their minds, they're psychologically, that is also, they're also very vulnerable in that regard. And if you talk about the electoral machines as well, I think the Election Commission, the organization that actually deals with this process, even that itself is not comfortable.
How can we build this capacity if we don't take a step in this direction?
Yes, so we should take a step in this regard.
That means we should wait for first to build a capacity, then to introduce a system?
Yes, sir, it can be introduced. IT, going with e-governance, going with IT, that is always a better option. But I think for that, we need first of all to build the capacity, to build the system that everybody can trust.
How can we build that capacity?
So I think it's going to take a long time, but we should take a start. And for that, first of all, the people should be trained, specifically the electoral people who are involved in the election commission.
I believe that you have studied political science, constitutional law.
Yes, sir.
As things evolve with the passage of time.
Yes, sir.
So you don't say that we will introduce democracy after 200 years when people will have the ideas and they have a capacity to choose their elected representatively wisely. But because these are the systems which eventually evolve with the passage of time, don't you think we will go for the policy, the implementation of EVM, and then say, okay, start building a capacity. Okay, next 5, 20, 30 years, we will have a EVM system which will address the concerns of all. Why don't we see things in that way?
So if you talk about democracy, if you're talking about political systems, and I think these political systems have also evolved after such a long time, and there have been different loopholes that have been addressed in the upcoming times.
Tell me, you're a student of constitutional law.
Yes, sir.
There are certain segments in Pakistan who claim that the constitution is nothing more than a piece of a paper. But there are other people who claim it's a sacred document. What makes constitution a sacred document?
Sir, I think for a state to be a state, constitution is actually the primary document that is actually a promise. If you talk about the social contract, the theory of social contract that was given by Thomas Hobbes, J.J. Rousseau, and then Locke, they all talked about this social contract. So why do we have to develop this social contract? So that people are sure and people are promised all the services for which they are actually surrendering their free will and they are succumbing to this general will. So this constitution, as per J.J. Rousseau, is a general will that all the people have agreed to with respect to a state.
Okay. Which one of these, whether governance issue or economic issues, which one of these is one of the most important and pressing issues in Pakistan, in your opinion?
Sir, I think the most important issues are the governance and the political issues, because if we are able to transform our political system, then our economic system that itself will get better with time. So if you talk about political system, I think the most important point here is that our political parties, they need to be in consensus. Secondly, the legislation, the primary principle of the primary objective of the legislature, that needs to be done. And for example, we have seen different ordinances have been drawn in the reign of this government. So I think that is not a good practice if we talk about a democratic country. So legislation should be done, and that too for the problems of the Pakistani people. This is an issue. And then for that,
you study sociology. What is the conflict perspective?
So the conflict perspective talks about the evolution of society from a conflicting point of view. It was given by Karl Marx, and he says that there has always been a competition. There has always been a disassociative relationship between different stratas of a society, and that's how it has evolved.
Okay, as we have seen that we are facing an issue of climate change. Do you think the climate change issue has a capacity to fuel conflict in the society?
Yes, sir, I'm very much sure about this. And how is it so? Because climate change is actually a phenomenon which is going to affect more. Conflict perspective talks about inequality, and even climate change we can apply the principle of inequality as well. There are some regions, for example, if we take example of East Pakistan and West Pakistan. East Pakistan was more inclined to the climatic changes as compared to West Pakistan. We could see the examples of Bhola cyclone and different storms there as well. So even that creates an inequality and hence conflict in a society.
One last question. Why Pakistan Administrative Service as first preference?
Sir, as I mentioned already that I have been in different leadership roles in my academic institutions as well. And right now, even since the time I started my job, I have been in 2 leadership positions, and I have been dealing with different situations of crisis management, and I think I'm good to deal with people, and I'm a good leader, and I have team building capacity, and I have good managerial skills as well, and that makes me a good administrator.
Sir.
Thanks. Ji Zubaria. Okay, tell me, your political views are more closer to Aristotle or Plato?
So I would go with Aristotle.
Aristotle. So it means you are idealist.
Yes, sir.
He was realist.
He was realist.
So
sorry, sir. You made me mistrust my concepts.
Okay, it's okay. Take it easy now. Can you name me the political philosophers of Roman Empire?
So I've just studied about one political philosopher of Roman
Okay.
Empire, and he was Saint Augustine.
Saint Augustine.
He's Augustine.
Saint Augustine. Have you not read about Saint Thomas Aquinas?
No, sir.
Okay. What was the political philosophy of Saint Augustine?
Sir, Saint Augustine was actually one of the pioneer of Roman Empire, and
One of the
pioneer of Roman Empire. He was there in the very beginning of the Roman Empire, as per my
Achha.
knowledge. As per my knowledge, I don't remember the year.
Can you tell me who is considered as the modern political thinker after the Dark Ages?
Sir, there have been different modern political thinkers after the Dark Ages. If we talk about 17th century, there have been political thinkers like, as I have mentioned, J.J. Rousseau. We have Thomas Hobbes, who gave their philosophies during
What
the
do you say
reign of-
about Machiavelli?
Yes, sir. Nicholas Machiavelli, Karl
What
Marx.
was new in the Machiavelli?
So Machiavelli actually talked about the sovereign. In his book, The Prince, he was actually talking about, we are going to look at the philosophers with respect to the time and space in which they were ruling. So during the time of Machiavelli, there was a lot of political instability, and the rulers of Medici, and he was an Italian philosopher basically, and during his reign, the ruler of that empire, they were expelled. He was from Medici family. Medici family. So he wrote The Prince for that particular perspective. Like, The Prince is considered to be written as a letter from him to that. So he actually told them that these are the attributes that need to be there in a prince for achieving political stability in his
Okay,
country.
who is the author of Spirit of Laws?
Sir, I have read about it, but it skipped my mind.
Okay, Montesquieu was the author of Spirit of Laws. Okay, tell me, what was the crux of political theory of Montesquieu?
So Montesquieu actually came up with this idea of separation of power. So he said the separation of powers that we could see in different developed nations right now, the legislature, executive, and judiciary. So his crux
This was his political arrangement.
Yes, sir.
What was his basic purpose of his political philosophy?
Yes, sir. Sir, the basic purpose for this political arrangement was to have checks and balances.
He wanted to establish liberty? For
Yes.
this? Okay, can you tell me how the political philosophies of Hobbes, Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau contributed toward the making of US Constitution?
So if we talk about Declaration of Independence for US Constitution, that was the beginning document. In that, I think the role played by these, especially the reign of French Revolution, and after that the consequences, I think those
When
played,
the French Revolution happened?
it took place in 1789, I
And
guess.
when American Independence, Declaration of Independence?
1776, I
So
missed
how
that.
this-
That happened after that. So it was inspired by the philosophies of these, because they talk about, again, as I mentioned, general will. They talk about liberty. They talk about all the promises that a state makes with the rulers make with the ruled ones. The promises of liberty, the promises of equality of law, the promises of rule of law for all the basic necessities, public service delivery, all of these. So, and no one is above the law. That is actually the primary focus, because before these people used to believe in divine right of kings. So it was abolished after this, and rule of law.
Divine right of king in all European states?
No, sir, not in all European states. I'm not sure about the states, but I'm sure about the relation between the two.
What is the difference between general will, actual will, and public mind?
General will, actual will.
Okay, actual will and general will.
Sir, actual will is actually free will.
Free will and general will?
Sir, general will is actually the will that has been adopted by the society as a whole. General, that's why we call it general. And free will is my will, what I want to do. But general will says that what I want to do cannot be done, because that might not be in harmony with what other people of my own society want to do.
Well, may I say general will is like the contract?
Yes, sir, that's a social contract.
Social contract. What utilitarian says about the social contract?
Sir, utilitarians, Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham, they say that whatever deeds we are doing, whatever deeds people are doing in a society or in a state, they should be done for a positive purpose, for a good reason, and this should be in favor of the majority of the public.
What is communism?
So communism is actually a political system, and it talks about the system where the ultimate power is held by the government, and there is no private property, and the market forces don't control anything. All the control is exercised by the government, an economic system and a political system as well. And its refined version is socialism that gives us economic liberty, but not the political.
Okay, what is Marxism then?
So Marxism has some similarity with communism, but there are some differences because Marx always talks about the conflict perspective, but Marx is the leading contributor to communism as well. So there are some differences between the two. I think Marx talks about exploitation. He talks about that because of that exploitation, the proletariat, it comes up and takes over the bourgeoisie of the society. And the communism, it talks about the government, they are actually the ruling ones and they are controlling the people.
Marxist-Leninist interpretation of communism.
So Marx, I have explained the Marxist contribution. Talking about Leninism, he talks about imperialism. The basis of his political philosophy is imperialism, because in that time he saw that how the European powers, especially the colonial era, how it was actually exploiting the third world countries through their imperial goals or their imperial objectives.
Pakistan Studies count. Now 1892 Indian Council Act. Can you tell me the few important things or features?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. In 1942, Cripps mission came to India. Both the leading political parties rejected that proposal that they brought. What was the take of Indian National Congress and All India Muslim League? Why they rejected?
Sir Cripps mission was brought in by Sir Stafford Cripps, who was the Secretary of State at that time. So the basic features were that at that time, the Britishers, they were looking for some constitutional arrangements in the subcontinent. So, and that came in the particular era as well. And after that, we would see after its rejection, there was a lot of chaos as well in the subcontinent. So the basic objective was that they were not going to give the liberty to the dominions of India. And that's what Indian National Congress and Muslim League have been striving for since the long time. So, and because of that, because of their mistrust or because of their unhappiness with the particular mission and because of the riots and chaos that took place, then Cabinet Mission Plan came and that actually granted them with the liberty that they wanted.
My last question. Governor General of India and Viceroy of India.
Okay. Sir, previously, we used to have governors in India, and then came the viceroys. So governors were there for, the first one was governor of Bengal, and then came the viceroys. So the governors, they used to work in harmony with the East India Company because at that time, the viceroys were not there. And the viceroys then reported to the Secretary of the State. That was established by the British legislature for the Indian subcontinent. That's what I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
What is your assessment? How you have performed?
Sir, I have to work on my knowledge base.
Good news is that you have faced our tough questions, rather, I will say, and you will be better off in the Public Service Commission. They are good people. ठीक है. Mashallah, you have got a good personality. Your communication skills are fine. You are full of energy. There is a clarity of thinking. Mind is you are sharp and you are in a state of preparedness. These are good things.
Thank you, sir.
ठीक है ना? Confident है आप. The advice is keep it up. Newspaper पढ़ती रहे. कब है इंटरव्यू आपका?
25th January.
25th. बाकी जितने दिन हैं इस पे आप जोर लगाए. आप पर उसमें आ सकती हैं.
Try my
You
best.
are a क्या कहते हैं ना winning horse. You have got the potential to win.